Radio. Their radio.
Skateboarding holds a special place in my heart. Growing up, I used to help my parents sell women's clothing at the San Fernando swap meet. And my favorite memories from the time were skateboarding with my friends through the different aisles. We would buy chips, tech decks, and any unsold school supplies. You know, we were kids who never really went to skate parks or parks in general to learn how to skate. We were just kids rocking bootleg skate shirts, helping our families, and learning how to skate on swap meet gravel grounds. Today on the show, we have someone who I met through art, activism, and skateboarding. It is one of my good friends, Bradley Afroilan. Bradley is a graphic designer from San Jose who has worked with companies like Revlon, Puma, and Uniqlo. He is the founder of a skateboarding zine named Skrrt, based in New York. Skrrt began as a personal documentation of his life in New York, but has transformed into a group of skaters, creating a space with magazines, posters, skate videos, and most recently skate events. I spoke with Bradley about his participation in renaming Barrow's Hall at UC Berkeley, starting Skrrt, on just doing it, and why he owes everything to skateboarding. We hope you enjoy. I began by asking Bradley how he got into doing activism through art.
As a kid, I was always into art, playing music and drawing. And somehow I just kind of fell out of that. Didn't really want to listen to that. At school, when you get introduced to social justice with those spaces like the multicultural center, at least for my case, the Filipino communities, the Asian community, you think about it as a student, how can I actually make some kind of change? Because that's the big word and you don't exactly know what that means. And for me, I would always see my friends posting on Facebook, talking about change and just what they wanted to do. And frankly, for myself, I just couldn't really do that. I couldn't really put it into words, even though as a sociology major, I'm supposed to be able to write papers and explain things. But for me, how it was when I was at UC Santa Barbara before Berkeley, there was a professor who was teaching this really cool class on activism when I did study abroad there. And the thing though is that there was this book called Beautiful Trouble. It was this book basically just artist tactics for social change. And essentially the same exact thing as art for social change. And I thought, this is actually really cool. Can you actually take something that is disruptive in some form of way as an art piece and then talk about something that's going on as some form of criticism or a shot at what might be going on in the world. And so it lined up more with how I feel and how I can put myself out there. And it just happened to be that art and drawing was that thing for me.
Bradley and I met through an art club in college called Art for Social Change. I remember the first large project where I felt like I was a part of something was when I helped Bradley in the renaming Barrow's Hall action. Bradley created an art piece that acted as a mock mural of people whom the hall should be named after. The people included were Philip Vera Cruz, Malcolm X, Asada Shakur, Ella Baker, Gabriela Silang, and Larry Leong. I asked him why it was important for him to create the art piece.
I felt more at home with Art for Social Change just because it just felt so good just to do something not so academic. Those were very fond memories back then of just going and drawing and then just doing renaming Barrows Hall, just knowing that I could leave an impact on the school in some form of way. It was definitely one of those moments of being I'm doing something that I know is going to have some type of effect and it's not going to take that much out of me in regards to emotional labor. And it was one of those things where it's it's not just the Filipino community that's affected, it's also the Black community, it's also all of ethnic studies and gender and women's studies that happen to be housed there, the sociology classes, the ethnic studies classes, just having that and then seeing that building be renamed after like what 4 years where they're finally like, hey, like we're removing this, we're not doing this anymore and we're going to rename it. That's great. But at the time that they did it was, during the time of George Floyd, like all of that. And so it's just like it was more of like a cop out just to like be like progressive and like hold like be like accountable if we're supposed to be like the beacon or whatever type shit of the UCs.
Because when you were doing that, I was a freshman, right? Like, I
Yeah.
had just started like UC Berkeley, and I was also trying to find like a community with art. And at the time, I definitely wanted to do screen printing, and I definitely knew that I wanted to do collages. But I felt like meeting you, meeting Dylan, meeting Dulce, meeting all these other artists, it kind of better helped me like focus as to what it is that I care about and what it is that I want to like, impact. Not only like socially, but also just for myself, like also like
Right.
knowing what it is that I care about personally. And just being part of that project of the renaming Barrows, I think that's one of those things where it's just like, even though the change of the name isn't going to happen anytime soon, at least it felt like it for me at that time. I knew I
Hmm.
was part of something, and I felt like it was something that I was comfortable with participating in,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
Um, it just felt like very impactful for me in that way, and that kind of motivated me to continue just doing screen printing and knowing that there's so much that can be done with it, and also just taking up
Right.
space, right? And that's something that we learned through screen printing, is just taking up space. After graduation, Bradley was working in tech, but after a few months, he decided to fully pursue graphic design in the East Coast. One of his first graphic design jobs was as a junior designer at Revlon, the makeup company. I kind of want to know more about how you became connected with Revlon, just because I thought that was a very cool story. You had been described by Ruba, which
Hmm.
is the creative director at Tiffany, as a perfect example of tenacity. I wanted to ask, if you could tell me a little bit more how you got connected with Revlon, especially as someone who moved from the Bay to New York.
Literally, it's because of skateboarding. Before that happened, before Revlon happened, I was working at an agency that I got connected through the Harold Hunter Foundation. And at the agency, it happened to be Steve Rodriguez was like the SVP, which is like basically like the vice president who's in charge of just like culture at the agency. And so I interviewed with him really easily, and then he gave me like a part-time job. Then they liked how I worked, and they gave me a full-time internship every single day. And then they were trying to keep me because they like getting along. Like I got along with everyone. I was able to do all the work, but the guys in suits couldn't keep me, unfortunately. They were like, "Nah, we don't have the money for that." And I was like, "Ah, crap! Like, what am I going to do?" And so this was during a time when things started going downhill really quick. It was like I don't have a job. And then all of a sudden, like we're moving, like me and the past roommates that I had, we were moving, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna be able to live with them anymore. My dog was like had like a seizure, broken by some like chick, and I was like, what am I gonna do? The nice thing though was that everyone at the agency was giving me a lot of advice. And one of the things I forgot, someone said to me, I think I just learned somewhere like a good way to use social media is by just reaching out and cold calling people and just seeing what happens with that. Someone through the Harold Hunter Foundation, I met up with him. He actually works at my company that I work right now at Uniqlo. But he said to me, "Hey," we met up one day because I was like, "Hey, do you think you can give me advice?" And so I was just reaching out to random people that I thought we'd have a connection with and just like offer them to buy them coffee. So he says to me at coffee that morning, he says, "Hey, I think you should look into this person named Ruba." And I have no idea who Ruba is. And he just says to me, "Hey, like Ruba does a lot in regards to like skateboarding, high fashion, and then just design in general." And so I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to take that chance. I'm just going to DM a bunch of people and just see if they have the time to even talk with me. And so what's fortunate enough is that with Ruba, she has ties to Supreme, like her kids was like part of Gang Corp, which is like one of like the skate company or not skate company, skateboard teams out here in New York that like got really big and like also again put like skateboarding on the map and just like a lot of those guys are now really killing it out in like LA or just like still even here in New York. And so, I DM'd her about 3 times with like the same message, just like asking if she could like have some time. And I honestly not thought nothing of it. Fortunately, like at the time, like I actually got some work at any network for like a week. she responds one day while I'm at Central Park waiting for work. And the reason why she responded is because I reposted this image that she created, because that's her thing. She juxtaposes or parallels images, and the images were of Tyshawn Jones, who would just like was on the verge of winning Skater of the Year, and then Kevin Abstract from Brockhampton. And so like I reposted it on my story, and then just like was like, this is iconic. Like this is so sick to see. And so finally, she responds to me. I give her the same canned message that I have again, but then just like shorten it up a little bit. And then she says, "Yeah, I would love to. Would love to make some time for you." I'm like, "Okay, great." So now I have someone just to like meet up and talk with. But then all of a sudden, she just drops the ball on me. She's like, "Hey, bring me your work." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She says to me, "I'm looking to fill a position for a junior designer." And I'm just like, "What? I could work at Revlon?" So prepped for the week. I remember going over to Revlon, going to the 50th floor to meet up with Ruba. Stunning view of what is it? The East River. You could see the Statue of Liberty. So I think maybe like 20 minutes before I had like loaded all of like my portfolio, like so that it was like easy viewing. Because I was like, okay, I look professional, whatever. Unfortunately, I did because there was no Wi-Fi. Like I'm so glad I did this. And so I show her my work, and the thing that catches her eye is actually a Skrrt magazine that I run. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, like you've taken something, and this isn't like any offense to you, but like you've taken something that was very little and you've made something out of it." Like at the time I was like shooting 3D photography, which was coming back, like all my photos were filmed, but like not calling out, it was shouting out like Strobeck, like William Strobeck's like filming as well. And yeah, it just worked out really well. I was supposed to do a second interview, but they just came straight up to me and were like, "Hey, we're gonna give you the job." And I got the job. And I was interviewing somewhere else and the offers were different. I didn't know how much I was going to get paid, but I'm so glad I went with Revlon because they paid me so much. And I was like, wow, this is the first like real job as a designer that I'm ever going to have. And I'm making this much. That's crazy. So shout out Ruba. Thank you so much for all that you've done, even though we don't chat anymore. The one thing that I take from that is generosity is what beauty looks like. And she was very generous to me.
Motivational teacher with words that burn people. Thank you, Skrrt. Fly with discord and see the genocide on the planet in uproar. Never good. The rules in paradise and
Who
never
made you begin creating Skrrt? Where did it stem from?
Skrrt came about because I needed a way to practice design. Like I was just like, I need to practice design and I need to get better at creating these things that I want to see. Skrrt was that thing that like put me on the map in regards to like my skateboarding. Like not like the biggest map, just around like people would like see it online and be like, "Oh, you're that guy who makes that stuff." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's me." And I think what it was that it was different because it was like coming from the perspective of me, and it was like very personal. People liked that personal side of things. And so it's just grown more and more. I don't even like know exactly what it takes the form of anymore. It's not just a digital zine that like I put together on my own. Several people helping me out with like edits. I mean, we're in print now, which is like really cool. Like we're about to put out our second zine like this coming week. Other people are making videos for us now. People are submitting their photos to like have it in there and just have us printed out. And it's really cool to see. Like about a month ago, we just held our first event over in the Bronx, gave away $500 of my hard-earned money to all the kids in the Bronx. Kind of wild how like something that started from my head of just like a way to get better at design has now kind of grown into something that I don't even know what it's going to look like in like the next like 2 or 3, 5 years, however long we're around for.
So we getting to work, bro. We out here for the Skrrt NYC Jam. Okay. It's the hope of my thoughts that I travel the ball, fly like an arrow of God until I'm gone. So drifting away like a feather in air.
Why did y'all choose the Bronx as a place to hold the event?
I never thought that we'd be holding an event this soon. Like the guys have been talking about it for the last 2 years about like, hey, like, it'd be super sick if we held an event. Like, I'd love to hold it in the Bronx. Most of the guys are from the Bronx. The thing though is that most of the events that do happen in skateboarding in New York happen in like LES, like Lower East Side, or just like in Manhattan or Brooklyn. It's never the Bronx. In that sense, underserved because There's only been like maybe one other event that was there. The guys were like, like there's not a lot of events here and we'd love to have it here. I'm like, all right, cool. Like we can do that. They basically did everything. Caesar like messaged a bunch of people, asked for some sponsors. We got sponsors. I got a skate shop to like give us some product. Fortunately, shout out KCDC. Because the other thing is that after the event, when I went to KCDC to talk to the guy who gave me some of the product, he was like, with events like this where you serve a community that's a little bit farther out or doesn't really get that much love, the kids who show up there are going to be very like happy and very ecstatic and thankful. But also it might also be like an open door for them to start thinking, hey, maybe I should start popping out to these events outside of the Bronx, because a lot of people actually don't leave their borough or they don't leave their block in New York. Like I remember when I moved here and I was talking to the kids, I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to FedEx. And they were like, Bradley, how do you know this? Like I've lived here my whole life. I don't even know that. I'm like, what? Haven't you like walked around New York?
No, dude, that's real. And I think that's true. Like even here in LA, even when I think of LA, like LA is big, you know? And one of those things is just like, there's so many parts to LA that me personally, like I never knew anything outside of the certain area that I grew up in. And I think that's true like everywhere. If it's true here, even if it's true in New York, then I'm assuming it's true everywhere.
Yeah.
Dude. I pulled this quote from something you've said, but it was actually from one of the first Skrrt things you made.
Who are you, Nardwar?
But you said like, dear skateboarding, thank you for teaching me how to fall, for teaching me to always keep trying, for teaching me how to fly after my dreams, for giving me friends everywhere, for teaching me to be thankful, for making me smile every day we get to ride. So it very much felt like a poem. To me, it is a poem, but where does this love and appreciation for skateboarding stem from?
And I was trying to figure out what to write for like the weekly like zine. And I was like, you know what? Let's just like make this about how skateboarding really does bring people together and how that event was like really nice and how it like brought people together. And I'm sure I was like, at the moment, I was sure of it, of how like, these feelings that I have about this piece of wood with 4 wheels and 2 trucks has to be the same for everyone.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, like also like the way you're presenting these ideas, it's larger than skating, right? It's like really building a relationship with people and with yourself, right? Because I think there's one thing that you talk about skateboarding. It's like that will to keep trying, never give up. And I think you've showed it with your move to New York, with always trying to pursue design. So I definitely see it as also something that's larger than skateboarding. And I think that's one of the main reasons why, even if you don't skate, you see that connection with Skrrt. And I really like what you said, which is I hope viewers get that we're just like you and we're making it up as we go. It's okay to break the rules in something that you don't have mastery over. So I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit more about that.
So that actually came from ID when they covered Gang Corp. But they just like, we're just going to make videos and we're just going to post it online. And so they happened to do it at the right time, because this is when the boom of like Instagram was like popping off. It comes from that. Skrrt is the same energy of just like, okay, I do not have a background in design. We are not like professional filmers or photographers in that sense. But you know what? We have a dream, we have a vision, we have something that we're like holding on to, that we're chasing after. And we're just going to go and do it. And we're going to fuck up as many times as possible. But you know what? It's better to fucking do it rather than to not do it at all. That's the thing that I think a lot of people don't do, is that they don't act. They see something, they're like, it'd be cool to do this. They don't do it. And where are they left? Same spot. But the thing that drove me, like, especially with like, when I remember when I was in the interview with Ruba, she asked me, why'd you move from California to New York? And I said to her, I thought about how in California it would be comfortable. And comfort is mediocrity. When I think of mediocrity is the death of success. You got to keep pushing. And you're not going to win automatically. You're not going to get those W's every single time. Like if you fail more times now, then you figure out, okay, what's actually going to work. Those W's are going to start popping up. And so frankly, it's like we're in it for the long term. Like we don't know what's going to happen. I barely know like what we're going to do. All I know is that we have a few business goals. We have to meet those goals, and that's it. Let's meet those goals. And then if something pops up that I think is feasible, then we'll do it. But we're not going to like just not do it, because how else is anything ever going to get done if you don't do it?
And I remember you telling me that when I told you, I was like, you know what, I'm trying to do this, or I'm trying to do it. You're like, dude, just do it. That's it. Simple as just do it. You're gonna
Yeah.
go well. People are gonna judge you regardless. I think I remember you
Yeah.
saying that. It's just like, you know what, like you
Yeah.
do it, people are gonna say something. You don't do it, people are gonna say something anyway. So why don't I just do it and follow whatever it is that you have in mind? And I remember reading your first post where it was very like personal. There was a lot of like, not only that, but you were like kind of also in a way journaling your experiences in New York through Skrrt. You know, talking about the people you've met, and
Yeah,
also
that first one, yeah.
like the people you met, the pictures of you know the friends you were making through skateboarding.
Right.
But what role has skateboarding played in your life?
You don't know how much I owe skateboarding for everything. Oh my God. I think it's true what they say, that it's like you don't what Phelps says from Thrasher, he says, RFP Phelps, but like skateboarding doesn't owe you anything. You owe skateboarding everything. Anything that I have right now has been traced back to skateboarding. Like when I moved here, it's like I wasn't entirely sure what I was gonna do, but I was like, I'm just gonna start skating. And then, the Harold Hunter Foundation was here. I'm like, what? Something that does with skateboarding? That'd be sick. Do that and then network through that in skateboarding. And then it just so happens to be that, Rupa happens to be working at Revlon. And because it was that connection with skateboarding and high and low art, it's like that brought me up. Everything that I have is because of skating. I don't really think of it that much, but I remember the first magazines I ever saw, which from like Transworld Skateboarding, like those were the first things I ever saw for ads. First things that I ever thought of, like, oh, this would be super cool to do for like a design. I just remember like ripping out the pages of like the magazine and just like throwing it up on my wall to decorate my room.
But there was also a gap where you didn't do skateboarding, right? And you said that was in high school.
Yeah.
Not only that, but I also remember you saying, or I've read that your relationship with skateboarding was different when you were younger as to what it is now, right?
Yeah.
In what ways was that relationship different?
When I was younger, it was just a way to make friends. It was a lot of fun. I think when I got to high school, I had to stop skating because I was like, oh, I got to focus on school because I need to get into a good college. I need to get a job after that. And then also just because like a lot of my friends stopped skating. They weren't skating anymore. And I was like, well, I guess I'll stop. But on the weekends, some random weekends when like I wasn't running, I would pick up a board and be like, I wonder if I can still do any of these tricks. Like, I wonder if they left. And surprisingly, they didn't really leave that much. Like, I still have most of those tricks. It wasn't until I get to college, maybe like I was still like pushing around at Santa Barbara. I wasn't like skating. But then I got to Berkeley and I was like, I got heartbroken. I was like, fuck, like, I'm gonna go skate. I remember this because there was this dude who was riding his bike over by Zellerbach. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna try and heel flip this like three stair. I've never heel flipped a three stair in my life. And I was like, I just decided that night to do it. And I was like very, very sad that night because I was like, damn, like I don't know what to do. Like I'm so heartbroken because I'm not gonna say it, but this person just broke my heart or whatever. And so I try the trick and I just fall and I eat shit. And I just start laughing. And there's this joy that comes out. And I'm just like, oh wow, like, when you feel depressed, because that's what I was at the time, you want to be able to feel something, anything. And for me, it was pain. Pain was just that reminder that I was alive, that I had something to live for. And so I fast forward maybe like a month or two later on, and I'm like talking to one of the therapists at a FOSD. And so she asked me all these questions about like having my mom like pass away when I was younger, And she says to me, you're really resilient. I'm just wondering, how did you do it? But she says, yeah, she asked me, like, what did you do? Like, how did you be so resilient? I was like, I just skated. And so similar to like my dad, who like when my mom died, he would like pray so much, like having a rosary like in his palm, or like he would always sleep with a rosary in his hand. It was a constant, right? And so skateboarding was a constant for me. It was like a crutch that wasn't a crutch. It was a crutch that like actually took me places because it's an actual vehicle. And so now it's like, okay, it's something that I still find like inspiration from. Like it's a workout. It's everything for me. It's led to me like meeting people here. Like almost every single weekend, there's somebody new to meet at the skate park. Like wherever I go, like right now, I'm like skating with all the dads right now because they're like, I like skating with the dads because like it feels really comfortable because like they're all good. They're all like okay. They're not like the biggest rippers, but it's like it's nice to like talk to like older skaters about like what's going on in the world, or like what's their view on things, or just like it's really easy to talk to them. I guess the reason why is because they're all comfortable in their own skin. Whereas like, you have all the teen boppers and just like the fucking NPCs wearing big boys and studded belts, and they're like, yeah, I'm fucking sick as fuck. And you're just like, dude, you'll figure it out. You don't have to do that anymore.
A last question I have for you is, I mean, you've created in a variety of forms, from, designing the renaming Barrow's Hall poster, making Uniqlo layouts, Revlon marketing, and then creating Skrrt. What is the one thing that you would say is consistent in all these projects you've been a part of?
I think it comes back to a dream. I was actually talking with a recruiter this past week, and it was actually one of the most enjoyable most enjoyable account in which I've talked to a recruiter before. About this recruiter, she was really nice because she started asking me about like, what's your dream? Not in those words, but she's like, what's the end all be all? Like, what would you want? Like, what are you looking for? And it was nice because like, when you dream, you get giddy, you get a smile on your face, you're talking about something that you're working towards. And all of these things that I've done, they are working towards that goal. And so like my goal one day is to be an art director for either Adidas skateboarding or Nike SB. And so I see everything like that. It's like, Barrow's Hall was obviously just like the first time that I was just doing anything. But from HHF, EP & Co. to Revlon to now Uniqlo, it's getting closer and closer and closer to that dream. I know it. Like even if like Skrrt doesn't survive, like I want this to be something that people can look back on and be like, we did this and this got me here, because Skrrt got me to where I am right now. Because it just so happened to be I meet the right people, put the right work in front of them, and they say, we're going to take a chance on you. And the thing though, at least for me, is that if there's an opportunity in front of me and I know I can kill it, I'm going to kill it.
Thank you so much to the homie Bradley for being down to participate in this project. You can find more about Skrrt on Instagram at skrrt.nyc. Learn more about Bradley and his work at www.bradleyafroilan.com. I will also include the link and description in the bio.